What's going on, everybody? Grab your mocha, grab your latte, grab your cappuccino, whatever the hell you're drinking. Settle on in. It's been your boy, Jobbers and Goons, the host today. And I'm going to do an interesting discussion on a topic between the two most popular comic brands in history, Marvel and DC. Full transparency, I love both Marvel and DC. So I feel like I can kind of approach this topic exploring and celebrating both and really highlighting the key differences between the two. In my opinion, there's some like narrative differences, mainly between their humans in Marvel and DC humans, that I believe is a big driving point behind the stories and just how it shapes the universe entirely. So with that in mind, I hope you guys enjoy videos like this. Smash the like button. Comment down below if you want to see more topics discussed like this on the coffee shop. And of course, go check out my main channel, Jobbers and Goons. But without further ado, let's begin. So to first start our kind of look into this, we're going to go with the overlying narrative, right? So, and sorry if you guys hear me adjust my microphone. It is what it is. Just trying to better sound. You know the vibes. Marvel primarily focuses on humanity / human and mortal type characters seeking the wonder of godhood while maintaining the idea that they fear none and respect none, or essentially don't have to respect anyone. Some cases of this, obviously Thanos technically was supposed to be like a mortal type being, sought godhood anyway. Doctor Doom did the same shit. I mean, there's so many cases of humans just seeking these higher places in the pantheon, with this true feeling that they have every right to do so and they don't have to respect higher powers. Good example of this too, when in the original Eternals run, the Deviants stated that humans will fight back against anything because they are a race and beings born and constituted with this like inherent will to resist and try to rise above. So they are the ones that are seeking the higher power. That's kind of the narrative for Marvel. On the other side for DC, DC primarily focuses on the gods or god types coming down and observing the humans and what they bring. So, for example, we have Superman types, we have Wonder Woman coming into the picture. These beings that are like gods to the rest of the world. And humans even revere their god type characters in this verse and their heroes. And they seek that level of protection often. It's like humanity and the mortal types have this tie to these superhero archetypes and these godlike figures to them, and they truly do trust them and believe them to be heroes. Whereas, like I just said with Marvel, that's not the case. You have the mortal and regular types trying to seek that kind of power and respect none. So the respect level right there is right out the gate completely different from an overlying narrative. Kind of with the established narrative, we do have several cases where we can kind of build upon this and give a great understanding to what exactly I mean. So to observe this fascinating difference on a multitude of levels, let's go ahead and get into some of the examples. So first, matchup that's very popular, one always brought up, Thanos versus Darkseid. Why is this something that's a good representation of the narration? Well, Darkseid is a god that's literally just seeking to become a higher god. Like he's already it. Like he's literally archetypal evil, archetypal bad guy. Just that exists. His literal existence is why he's bad. Then you have Thanos. Thanos literally started out as a deviant from the humans who seeks godhood and seeks to become more. So you have one already there and one seeking it. That's kind of the difference, the like motivation and drive between the two. And I think it's fascinating because these are two characters that are constantly compared to each other, yet narratively have such a big difference. To kind of wrap up this matchup in comparison, for all the hype he gets, for all the crazy storylines Thanos gets, we have to remember he almost approaches it from the humans, like how they do in Marvel. Like, he just believes he has the right to sit up there with the gods, and that's what drives his character. Plus, obviously, trying to please someone, but you get my point. And then on Darkseid, he just is. Like, he's a god. Like, that. Everything that's happening, that's dickhead shit from him, it just is. That's how it's supposed to be. So one forging ahead, trying to be a god, and one already a god just cruising. It's one of those interesting dynamic differences within the storytelling for both verses. Next one, in my opinion, is an underrated one to talk about. I think it's interesting. Thor vs. Superman. So this one might throw you off for a little bit, but let me explain why it still follows the Marvel DC dynamic and narrative. So yes, Thor is a god. The god of thunder from Asgard. No denying that. So in the Thor Superman comparison, you would think, like I said, the advantage of the narrative would favor Thor as a god, right? You'd be like, oh no, that's more DC. Wrong. Thor outright just vibes with humans more. Midgard and humans, he just relates to more. And you can quite clearly tell it throughout his story, and he literally becomes a protector of it. In frequency there, quite often. In fact, he's a damn Avenger for Midgard. So yeah, like he literally just sides and relates with man so much more. And not to mention, he was humanized through Donald Blake and actually had a mortal form, constantly seeking once again his godhood, not even knowing if he's worried or worthy of it sometimes. And overall, just being a very relatable, almost humbled being that happens to have godhood. Then on the other side, you have Superman. First superhero ever. Child from Krypton. Literally an alien god. Like, Superman is literally archetypal hope. As long as there is hope in DC Comics, Superman will exist. That's OD. Like, Superman's written to be there as the, like, one of the first just symbols of hope and salvation in comics ever. He's supposed to just narratively find a way to win at the end of the day. Case in point, Doomsday Clock when he stood up to Dr. Manhattan. And like, honestly, with Superman, there's a lot of aspects to his character that are just not relatable as readers coming from a human level. For example, like his almost Jesus-like turn the cheek mentality, whereas that boy Thor, swing on Thor to see what happens, bitch. Thor is sliding regardless. So it's like, it's way different in their mentalities. One almost has this salvation slash savior figure complex and archetype in Superman, whereas Thor, despite being a god, really does relate to the mortals and just is a lot more relatable for the mortals in that aspect and sense, including for the readers. But again, not saying Thor's a better character than Superman. I'm just saying from the human aspect, even though Thor's a god, he actually is a little more relatable in my opinion than Superman. Superman is actually more of a god figure in my opinion. Next one I'd talk about would be Wonder Woman versus Hulk. Alright, so another member of the Trinity on the DC side. Now, the kind of differences here, I mean, we can kind of go over the basic ones first. And yes, these characters do get compared to, and the biggest thing they have in common for both sides, how they represent for their perspective verse, on their teams, like the Avengers and Justice League, they're the characters nobody wants to fight. Like, you can say what you want about who would win if everybody fought. In terms of just characters that are a nightmare to have to deal with in a fight, generally, like, when it comes to the Avengers, people are like, yo, don't bring Hulk or stay away from Hulk. He's crazy. You just don't know how capable he is because of his strength. Then on the Wonder Woman side, they're like, yo, she's literally just built to fight. Like, no one wants to beef with her either. So they do share that in common. So that, in my opinion, big reason why they get compared. But on some differences on a narrative level, kind of take a look at it. Like, Hulk is a man who was the result of human experimentation and also eventually, as we know now in modernized comics, the result as well of tampering from literally God himself. And that man aspect of him is very real and very, like, important because obviously Bruce Banner, no matter how strong he gets, no matter how much strength God gives him, Bruce Banner is still a victim of his own brilliance and a victim of his own trauma and torment he's been through throughout the years. So that broken psyche aspect, that humanity aspect of Hulk, it's just a lot more human, like I said, that Marvel seems to go with. On the DC side, dude, Diana was made out of fucking clay from the gods. Like, she was made out of clay, blessed by the gods, became a kid, boom. That's, like, convenient as shit. Homie Bruce was getting his ass whooped when he was a little kid. Like, that, it's just completely different. Diana was raised by the god, like, to be godly in nature, like the divine woman handing out ass whoopings type beat. Like, she's crazy with it. And she was always like that, always had that position of power. And literally, like, even in the modern comics, she's been given a role. For example, when she ascended to, like, hand status, basically, where she's one of the powers that governs creation, almost like a mother figure. Like, she's that powerful and that important and that godly in her portrayal, whereas Hulk, basically temper tantrum human. Like, that's how he's almost portrayed. Just all this power, but still bound by his very human emotional side. So, yeah, like I said, those two, while yes, they are compared, there's so many different, like, angles taken with them from narrative aspects for Marvel and DC. Again, that driving factor from Marvel, humans, even when they go for attaining godhood, still being bound by that human side of them, whereas DC, it's more like God's trying to understand us humans. Next, we have a comparison that I kind of just threw on here last second because I honestly forgot in my initial thoughts on this. Shout out to my boy or Cosmic Comet for bringing it up. And Batman vs. Iron Man. Now, you might be like, yo, two humans? You think they're going to be compared in godly nature? Yep, I'm about to do it to you. So, first of all, Batman's been God several times. Bro's got the drip. That's my favorite character in comics, so I'm definitely not hating on him. But Batman is revered and looked at as like a god intellectually by even literal gods. He is one that's always in an authoritative position, even when dealing with Darkseid. Like, he pulled up on Darkseid and held him at ransom, and Darkseid was like, dude, dealing with Batman's a bitch, because boy's just, like, godly with it. Like, he's just too smooth with it. He doesn't do any of that stupid shit, like partying, drugs, all that. Maintains perfect physical fitness, all this shit. Just the perfect man. Like, getting the job done, being the leader of the Justice League, even when they hate him. Like, he's supposed to be the perfect hero as Batman, and he's even considered archetypal in DC, up there with the other Trinity, Superman and Wonder Woman. Then, and by the way, you know, just another way to look at it, he's oftentimes portrayed as arguably the least relatable out of the Trinity. Like, he's a billionaire, but at the same time, parents were killed, so suddenly he becomes the smartest man in the world while also being the best fighter in the world. Like, a whole bunch of crazy shit. Doesn't love these hoes. Raises kids to be fighters of genocide and shit. Like, it gets wild in the Bruce Wayne and Batman streets. And oftentimes he's not relatable to even the characters around him. He's almost like a god to them as well. So definitely has that angle to him. Whereas Iron Man is this character that off rip, yes, he's wealthy, comes from a wealthy, brilliant family, but he's a broken dude. Dude has a lot of character flaws, you know. And these are quite obviously shown as character flaws and detractors, whereas with Batman, it like adds to his mystique and persona. Iron Man, like, he drinks too much, parties too much, hangs out with hoes. He's got too much money and too much time on his hands sometimes. Like, and he tends to, his ego drives him, right? Like, he's not always gonna make the best decisions just because his ego's in the way. He's being selfish, stuff like that. Sometimes the team can't trust him because you don't know what he's gonna do. Whereas Batman, they do trust him even when they're like, "Yo, we wish you'd tell us more." They know Batman's gonna clutch the W. Whereas Iron Man, they're like, "Oh my God, is Tony drinking again?" Like, they don't know. He's up to wild shit. Like, he got drunk and yelled at Odin one time to let him use rune magic because he was like, "Yo, if I had access to shit like that, I would cook." And Odin was like, "You're wilding right now, son." But yeah, like, Tony, as brilliant as he is always shown as this character with a lot of negative to him, like this downside that detracts from him. And it makes him a very complicated, amazing character, where their like persona of Batman, despite like being this reclusive, it makes him iconic. Like, he doesn't relate to others, but they're not meant to relate to him. He's too good. He's Batman. Like that. Like, perfect example when Dark Supergirl was running up on Batman, and she was like, "I don't understand why people don't just kill you. I don't understand why they look at you like you're a god. You're just a man." And she immediately gets folded by a device Batman had ready because you're not catching him lacking, bitch. It's Batman. And Supergirl's watching this and she's like, "No, he's not just a man. He's Batman." And that's just how it is sometimes, dog. Deal with it. If they say that's Batman, plot armor happened. I'm sorry. That's probably what happened. But like I said, it goes with his godly aspect. Whereas Tony, everyone's always hating on him, but let's be honest, that boy's a bucket too. But yeah, he really has the more human aspect of struggling to keep up with the gods around him, even sometimes begging the gods to let him have more access to more, whereas Batman kind of already has it and is seen as like that level. So definitely an interesting dynamic right there. And then, another one, Avengers versus Justice League. Kind of keep it short with this one because I've touched on it in the other angles. Like, the Avengers are essentially a conglomerate of like humans, also super beings that were helped created by humans, and gods with more human ties than godly. They battle to save a world that doesn't even love them. Like, check this out. Even looking at the X-Men, there's a lot of humans that literally try to cause genocide on mutants in the X-Men. They still save them anyway. They do a lot of shit in spite of the humans and how the Marvel universe treats them. It's generally rough in Marvel if you're a hero. I'm just being honest. And then the Justice League literally are written and modeled after coming after like archetypal powers and being modeled with that. And then they have oftentimes been molded to best reflect these and the best of, in most cases. For example, Superman's like the archetypal superhero, the good guy that saves you at the end of the day. He's the hope. Wonder Woman, like the archetypal female superhero, a symbol of strength, resistance, all that. And then you have Batman, the human who walks among gods and holds his own. All these things. Flash, the fastest thing ever. Like, it's a whole bunch of characters that are like essentially molded after or related to these archetypal powers in DC. But Avengers, bro, they're hanging out at the building, at Tony's building. If some shit goes down, hit them up, they'll solve it for you type deal. It's at one point they had Avengers in every state. Like, it's a mess because it's really like a conglomerate of individuals that are very much more human in nature than the Justice League seems to be, at least in how they act and carry themselves. And then, like I said, and talking throughout the video, humanity versus humanity. Just on a basic level. Marvel humans don't really rock with the heroes. Oftentimes, they'll even try to kill them. They don't really vibe with them. Whereas in DC, they view them as they're heroes. Build them statues, worship them, all that. Really good example. There's actually a crossover with Marvel DC, and I've brought this up before, where Captain America and all them were interacting, and Cap was like, "Yo, they got statues of y'all here? Like, they worship you here?" And they were like, "Yeah, of course. We're heroes. We saved the world. Like, why wouldn't they?" And Cap was like, "Dude, Marvel humans would never." He was like, "They don't worship us like this. They hate us. Like, they think we're a problem." And it was just so cool seeing Cap drawing that clear distinction between how both humans work in each universe and how narratively they're just so much different by literal the baseline level and going all the way up, and it reflects in their characters, heroes, and even villains. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching this. I guess you'd call it a little bit of a video essay. Some of it was written, most of it wasn't. It was just my thoughts piggybacking off my notes. I had a blast examining the difference between Marvel and DC. What do you guys think of this? Do you guys agree with these differences? Do you disagree? Give me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Make sure to go check out my main channel, Jobbers and Goons, and make sure to check out all of the members of the coffee shop that make great content like myself. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been your boy, Jobbers and Goons, and I will see y'all later. Peace.